What do you feel like you could see changing in the men's club? What would you want to change in the men's club?
I'd like to see more calling out, just like you said. I'd like to see more people taking their own initiative and thinking that that's not right. Hi, I'm Abe Turner. I'm a member of the men's rugby club. I'm a male, straight, heterosexual. Yeah, that's me.
Hey, I'm Zelah, otherwise known as Z. I'm part of the women's rugby club. My pronouns are she, her, and I am a lesbian.
Have you had negative experiences as part of the women's rugby club or any other sports society in the uni?
Within my club, I have never had an issue. I've always felt welcome at UNWRC.
Yeah.
Always. Within uni, yes, mainly to do with sports clubs in particular. Probably men in clubs. A lot of that can sometimes get quite toxic.
Yeah.
With aggressive situations, sometimes people will then turn on my sexuality. So if a guy is being inappropriate towards a girl and I step in, I'll then be called a slur because of the way I obviously look, and stuff like that. I've been called a few homophobic terms towards men because people in clubs often think I'm a guy. So the F slur is thrown around at me a lot, and especially on Crisis, which is obviously our big sports night out. That's where most of my issues arise from.
What does it mean for you to be in part of a club that supports you?
Everything to the sport as a whole, my ability to partake in it. I joined rugby partially because it is a team sport.
Yeah.
And if the environment is off, especially for stuff like personal things like sexuality and people judging you for things that you can't control, that would 100% change the entire experience.
Yeah.
And I think it could even go as far to affect people's play. I know a lot of people who quit sports teams because they don't feel supported in any aspect, and that's just not what we want, especially in our rugby club.
Yeah.
What about you?
I agree. I think I like what you say about it rubs off on the way that you play. I think rugby is a big sport of confidence, and if you're constantly being hindered in how you feel by the things that people are saying about your own sexuality, then you're never going to feel confident. But there's so much more to life than playing rugby, and it's just we've got to be in a supportive environment, and that's what I think that the rugby club is here. So what kind of things would you like to see stamped out from the rugby culture in the women's or in the men's or in rugby in general?
I think first off, a lot of stereotyping. I know I don't exactly help that stereotype for obvious reasons, but I think I have heard a lot of people start to feel a bit left out in certain aspects because of the image that is usually associated with women's rugby. And also the biggest thing I'd like to stamp out, especially from the men's club, as you know, you hear stories, is certain language use.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest issue that I've heard, but also any alienation which can occur, especially in environments with men's rugby. You get a lot of masculinity and a lot of the toxic traits that can come with it.
Yeah.
What about you? Is there anything that you've witnessed?
I think certain language that's used, I think is often very derogatory and is unacceptable. I'd like to see that stamped out personally. I think that's also exacerbated by the kind of macho masculinity that you touched upon. I think men often like to show that they're big and strong, and it often comes out in the language that they use. So I would agree with that. I think the language needs to be changed, and I think there are things that could be done to help that.
Do you think there are any perceptions of being gay that are weakness?
I personally don't at all. I don't see that in the rugby club or in society. What about you? Do you see that?
No, I see how stereotypes have ruined or kind of affected the way that people think that masculinity and being gay can't coexist, which is ridiculous. And obviously, again, masculinity in sports and being strong, all these things intertwined, and people seem to think that who you love affects that, which it shouldn't. I mean, there's no correlation there. But yeah.
What would you like to see from the men's rugby club to help with the issues in LGBTQ plus community?
From the men's rugby club, probably more conversations. More calling each other out. I think that's the most important part of any men's sports club, is calling each other out. Some guy throws around the F slur or says the words like, that's so gay. So people brave enough to, in those situations, say, that's not alright. I'm not saying fight your mates, I'm just saying call them out. I mean, it's better coming from a friend most of the time. Where do you think the root of these conversations start?
I think they have to start they have to start now, of course. But I think in every single social setting, we need to go in with an agenda, and we need to think about absolutely everything that we're saying. We need to try and be respectful the whole time in all conversations.
I agree. I think it's about the internalisation of the thought. So less performative. If a gay person is not in the room, it's still not okay to say these things. It's about actually believing that the slurs and the mindset and the views that come with it is incorrect and it's just wrong. So this has been a conversation about LGBT experiences at university and in sport, and I hope that you guys will be having these conversations too.